to talk to you about a very good friend of mine who is, we've known each other for 6 years? 7?
No, a decade, since I had hair. It was because I was on CNN days.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was there.
So we met, and we both have a love of history. And you might know him because he does some other, I don't watch cable, so. But he is a history buff and one who is motivated, as you are and as I am, to set things right. We both also, having children, know that if you don't get into the culture and start deprogramming, and not by being negative against things, but being for something, we're not gonna pass on our culture. So he has written 2 new books called I Am Abraham Lincoln and I Am Amelia Earhart. Both great books. I like to read this one to my son and this one to my daughter, just because of confusing gender. So I think it's popular now. But they're both great for, it doesn't, I mean, it's just whatever. They're just 2 great stories for your kids. You want to explain how you put these together?
Sure. So, and Glenn, for me, my love of my family, and we all have to stand for something, right? For me, I was tired of my kids looking at reality TV show stars and loudmouth athletes and thinking that's a hero. And I tell my kids all the time, that is fame. And being famous is very different than being a hero. And because of what we do with history and because of what I do in my thrillers, I have access to so many hero stories. And I said I have Abraham Lincoln and Rosa Parks and Amelia Earhart. We can tell these stories, George Washington, and give these stories to our kids. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do children's books, the first nonfiction books you can read with your kids, but it doesn't just show you the things you know about these heroes, it shows you them when they were actually kids themselves. So you see Abraham Lincoln when he's a boy, you see Amelia Earhart when she's a little girl.
Explain this, because this is really, I talk to my kids about Abraham Lincoln, he frees the slaves and everything else. And that doesn't really mean much to them.
Right, a beautiful piece of history, but they can't use that in their life every day.
Yeah, when they're 6 and 7.
That's right. But if I tell my son, and this is a true story that's in the book, that Abraham Lincoln, when he was 10 years old, came upon a group of boys who were playing with turtles. And he was an animal lover, so he races over, and he sees they're not playing with the turtles. What they're doing is putting hot coals on the backs of the turtles. They're torturing them. And little Abraham Lincoln, in that moment, right, here's the morality tale, and it's real. It's not a fake one. And he looks over, and this is a hard moment because it's hard to do the right thing, but someone has to. And we need to teach our kids that. And Abraham Lincoln looks at these bullies and says, take the coals off the turtles, saves the turtles, stands up to the bullies. And my son hears that, and he says, Dad, Abraham Lincoln's brave, and he loves animals just like me. And now he knows about bullies, and he has something he can use. And Abraham Lincoln, in that moment, is alive and important again to my little one.
Tell the story of Amelia Earhart and her roof.
Yeah, so this is one for my daughter. My daughter, I tell her all the time, Amelia Earhart, she flew across the ocean. Aren't you inspired, dear? She says, Dad, everyone flies across the Atlantic Ocean these days. What else you got? But if I tell her this true story that's in the book, that Amelia Earhart, when she was 7 years old, she built a homemade roller coaster in her backyard. She took a wooden crate, she put roller skate wheels on the bottom of the crate. She pushes it up to the roof of her tool shed. Okay, I mean, this is gall. And then she takes 2 big pieces of wood. She has them coming down from the roof. She greases them with lard to make sure that she can move fast enough. She gets on top of the roof in this rickety little box and looks down at her sister and says, I'm going first. And her sister looks up and goes, yeah, genius, you go first. And then she comes careening down. The wind is in her face. Her stomach bottoms out from under her. It's the very first time in history that Amelia Earhart truly flies. She knows in that moment she wants to do that again, and she crashes, tumbles, the thing falls apart. She gets up and she goes, that was awesome. In that moment, whatever she says there, my daughter reads that and goes, oh my gosh, Amelia Earhart's like me. She's amazing, she's daring, and most of all, she's fun. And my daughter now walks around in an Amelia Earhart t-shirt. Why? Because I gave her the good enough story to capture her attention.
Okay. You want to save the country, you got to save it one child at a time. Not preachy, not goofy, really good books. I Am Abraham Lincoln, I Am Amelia Earhart by one of my real heroes, Brad Meltzer. Back in a second. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
Coming up